He had soft hands and a suit. I had calloused hands and coveralls. She chose him, but she kept spending my overtime money while I worked double shifts at the refinery. I adjust my hard hat and check the pressure vessel certification logs on my tablet, the familiar hum of Gulf Coast refining solutions filling the morning air. The routine inspection shows I logged 47 hours last week, overtime that should mean a decent paycheck. Steam hisses from nearby pipes as I mark completion times with methodical precision. Another long week, I mutter, wiping sweat from my forehead with the back of my work glove. The refinery's metallic smell mingles with salt air from the Gulf Coast, that mix of crude oil and ocean breeze I've breathed for 20 years now. Everything feels normal, predictable, the way 16 years of marriage and 20 years of pipe fitting have trained me to expect. My steel-toed boots clang against the metal grating as I walk between the towering distillation columns. The morning shift is just getting started, guys calling out greetings as they check their equipment. I nod back, keeping my responses short. Work speaks louder than words. That's always been my way. The tablet screen shows green check marks next to each pressure vessel I've inspected. 47 hours logged. Should be a good pay stub this week. Maybe enough to finally fix that leak in the kitchen faucet Emily's been mentioning. At the kitchen table that evening, Emily barely looks up from her phone as I review my pay stub. The numbers don't add up. My overtime shows 32 hours instead of 47. I squint at the paper, running my finger along the line items like I'm reading a technical manual. "Hey, Em, look at this," I say, sliding the pay stub across the table. "I'm missing 15 hours of overtime." "Probably just a payroll glitch," Emily says dismissively, her manicured nails continuing to tap against her phone screen. She doesn't even glance at the paper. The smell of reheated Chinese takeout fills our modest dining room, containers still scattered across the table. I frown at the discrepancy, my methodical mind catching details others miss. 15 hours at time and a half. That's real money, money we need. I'll check with Dave tomorrow, I decide, folding the pay stub carefully and tucking it into my shirt pocket. The sound of Emily's nails against her phone screen fills the quiet house, oddly irritating tonight. She's been on that thing constantly lately. Something feels slightly off, but I can't pinpoint what. Like when a pressure gauge reads normal, but the pipes sound different. You learn to trust your instincts in this job. The next morning, I approach Dave Kowalski near the main control panel. Steam obscures our conversation as I show him the pay stub. Dave's been my supervisor for 8 years. Good man, fair, doesn't bullshit around. 15 hours missing from my overtime calculation, I explain, my voice steady but concerned. I point to the discrepancy with my pen. Dave squints at the numbers, his weathered face creasing with confusion. His hard hat sits crooked on his gray hair, coffee stain on his company shirt, telling me he's already had a long morning. "That's weird, brother. System shows you clocked out early 3 times last week." He pulls out his own tablet, scrolling through timesheet data. The industrial noise around us seems to amplify my growing unease. "But I was here until midnight Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday," I insist, remembering the late-night pressure tests clearly. "Had to finish the vessel inspections on the south units. You signed off on the overtime authorization yourself." Dave's expression shifts from confused to concerned. "Yeah, I remember. You were definitely here." He scratches his beard. "Let me check with HR. Something ain't right." The way he says it, careful like he's already thinking this might not be a simple computer error, makes my stomach tighten. That evening, I sit in my home office, reviewing my personal work logs against the official timesheet. I keep meticulous records, old military habit that served me well. The discrepancies are consistent, systematic. Someone has been adjusting my clock-out times, making it look like I left early when I worked late. My pen taps against the desk as Emily calls from the kitchen about dinner plans. "I'm working late again tomorrow," she announces, her voice carrying from the other room. Book club is discussing that new novel everyone's talking about. The irony isn't lost on me. She's been working late frequently while my recorded overtime mysteriously disappears. I make a note in my logbook. Check time card access protocols. The house feels different somehow, though I can't articulate why. Like when equipment runs fine but the vibrations are slightly off. You learn to pay attention to those subtle changes. I pull up my smart home app while Emily showers, checking the thermostat history out of idle curiosity. We installed the system last December. Emily wanted to be able to adjust temperature remotely, save on energy costs. The data shows manual temperature adjustments at 2:47 p.m. last Tuesday, when Emily claimed to be at her book club, and I was supposedly still at work according to the official timesheet. But I know I was at the refinery until midnight that day. My thumb hovers over the screen, studying the timestamp. The shower water runs upstairs, Emily humming something I don't recognize. Wednesday shows similar adjustments at 3:15 p.m., Thursday at 2:23 p.m. My methodical mind processes this information slowly, like analyzing pressure readings on a faulty gauge. Manual adjustments mean someone was home, physically touching the thermostat. But Emily said she was at book club, and according to my stolen timesheet, I was supposedly home early. Probably just Emily coming home early, I tell myself, but the timing bothers me more than it should. The pattern is too consistent, too deliberate. I close the app and head upstairs. Some questions are better left for tomorrow. The locker room at Gulf Coast Refining fills with steam as I change after my shift. The conversation with Dave echoes in my mind. HR confirmed someone has been manually adjusting my time cards. Not a computer glitch. Deliberate manipulation. Who has access to do that? I had asked. Dave's uncomfortable shrug suggested the answer was troubling. Payroll supervisor, HR manager, and... He trailed off. And who? Anyone with administrative access to the system. That's maybe 6 people total. The metallic clang of lockers closing punctuates my thoughts as coworkers head home to families. I stare at my reflection in the foggy mirror, wondering why someone would steal my overtime hours. 15 hours a week for how long? I need to check my old pay stubs. The theft feels personal, deliberate. Like someone knows exactly when I'm working late and adjusting the records accordingly. My jaw tightens as I realize this isn't just a payroll error. Someone is systematically robbing me. And if they know when I'm working late, they might know other things too. The drive home feels different tonight. Every red light gives me time to think about those stolen hours, the pattern of theft that's been happening right under my nose. My hands grip the steering wheel tighter as I pull into the driveway, the familiar crunch of gravel under my tires somehow sounding hollow. The front porch light is on, casting long shadows across the yard. Emily's car sits in its usual spot, but something about the scene feels staged, like walking onto a movie set where everything looks normal but nothing quite is. I push through the front door and Emily appears from the kitchen, practically bouncing on her toes. She's wearing a dress I don't recognize. Navy blue with some kind of pattern. Definitely not from Target where she usually shops. The fabric looks expensive, the kind that whispers when she moves. "How was work, honey?" Her smile stretches wide, but there's something brittle about it under the warm kitchen lighting. Fresh makeup at 6 p.m. catches my attention. Who puts on makeup to cook dinner at home? I study her face, noting details I usually overlook in my post-shift exhaustion. The expensive perfume, not the drugstore stuff she normally wears. Nervous energy radiating from her like heat off hot pavement. Her hands fidget with the dress hem. Fine. Had some payroll issues to sort out. I keep my voice level, watching for her reaction. Emily's expression flickers for just a moment, so quick I almost miss it. Then she turns back to the stove, dismissing me with a wave. "Oh, that's annoying. I'm sure it'll work out. Her casual tone grates against my nerves. 15 hours a week stolen from my pay, and she thinks it's just annoying? The house smells like her perfume mixed with something else, something masculine, a cologne I don't recognize, lingering in the air like an unwelcome guest. "What's for dinner?" I ask, moving closer to the stove. "Chicken marsala. Thought I'd try something new." She doesn't meet my eyes, focusing intently on stirring the sauce. Her movements are too precise, too controlled. The kitchen feels smaller than usual, the familiar yellow walls seeming to press inward. I notice she's already set the table with our good dishes, the ones we save for company. Why the fancy treatment for a Tuesday night? "You seem energetic tonight." "Do I?" She laughs, but it sounds forced. "Just had a good day, I guess. Book club was really interesting." Book club. Right. I nod and head upstairs to change, my mind already working through the timeline. If someone's been manipulating my timesheets, they know exactly when I'm supposed to be home late. And if Emily's been lying about book club, the pieces start forming a pattern I don't want to see. After dinner, I wait for Emily to start her evening routine. Face wash, moisturizer, the whole ritual that takes her 20 minutes. The bathroom door closes and water runs. I open my laptop at the kitchen table. The screens glow harsh against the dimmed lights. My methodical mind takes over, approaching this like troubleshooting a pressure system. Cross-reference the data points, find the correlation. My work logs sit in one window, the smart home app in another. September 15th. Timesheet shows I left at 3 p.m. Smart home data. Thermostat manually adjusted at 2:47 p.m. But I worked until midnight that day. I remember because we had that emergency valve replacement. September 18th. Timesheet says 2:30 p.m. departure. Thermostat adjustment, 3:15 p.m. Another late night I actually worked. September 22nd. Timesheet shows 4 p.m. Thermostat, 2:23 p.m. The pattern becomes crystal clear, each data point hitting like a hammer blow. Every day my timesheet shows early departure. Someone was home during afternoon hours. Someone who knew exactly when I was supposed to be away. My pulse quickens, that familiar surge of adrenaline I get when equipment starts failing catastrophically. The living room feels smaller suddenly, the familiar furniture seeming to harbor secrets. The couch where we watch TV, the coffee table covered with Emily's magazines. Everything looks the same but feels contaminated. The shower upstairs continues running. Emily's voice carries down, humming something I don't recognize. Something happy and light, completely at odds with the evidence mounting on my screen. I check the Ring doorbell history next, my fingers trembling slightly as I navigate the app. The interface loads slowly, each second stretching like molten metal. What am I looking for? But my gut already knows. The data will either confirm my growing suspicions or put them to rest forever. I select last Tuesday's footage, the day Emily claimed book club ran late. The timestamp shows 2:30 p.m. as the video begins loading, pixels assembling into an image of my front porch. A silver BMW pulls into my driveway. My heart stops. I've never seen this car before. It's expensive, not the kind of vehicle anyone in our neighborhood drives. The license plate is too far away to read clearly, but the car screams money. Real money, not refinery worker money. Emily emerges from our front door like she's been waiting, watching for him. The driver steps out, tall, maybe 6'2", wearing a suit that probably costs more than I make in a month. Dark hair, confident posture, the kind of guy who's never had grease under his fingernails. They embrace on my front porch, and it's not a friendly hug. It's intimate, familiar. Her hand lingers on his chest. I watch my wife of 16 years betray me in high definition. They disappear into my house together, the door closing behind them. The footage continues, timestamp ticking forward. 2:31 p.m. 2:32 p.m. The BMW sits in my driveway like it belongs there. Who is this guy? The empty living room doesn't answer. Upstairs, Emily's shower finally stops. I quickly scroll to the end of the footage. 5:45 p.m. The BMW pulls away. Just 15 minutes before I usually get home from work. Cutting it close, but not close enough. I sit in the dark, laptop screen illuminating my stunned face. The familiar house around me feels foreign now, like I'm trespassing in someone else's life. Every shared meal, every conversation, every time she said she loved me, how much of it was lies? My hands shake as I navigate to other dates. More footage reveals the same pattern spanning weeks. The same BMW, the same man, always during my supposed overtime hours. The stolen time wasn't just about money. It was providing perfect cover for Emily's affair. The irony cuts deeper than any blade. Someone at work steals my overtime pay, while my wife steals the time itself. The systematic coordination suggests this isn't coincidence. Someone's been planning this, orchestrating both thefts to work in perfect harmony. I check September 25th. There's the BMW at 2:15 p.m. September 29th, 3 p.m. sharp. October 3rd, October 8th, October 12th. Always the same routine, always during my falsified early departures. The house feels hollow now, echoing with 16 years of what I thought was a solid marriage. The wedding photos on the mantel mock me from across the room. Emily in white, promising to love and honor. Me in my rented tux, believing every word. My methodical mind begins calculating not just financial theft, but emotional devastation. How long has this been going on? Who is he? And more importantly, who at work is helping make this possible? I open the smart home system's complete history, diving deeper into months of data. The Nest cameras I installed for security have been documenting my wife's deception in excruciating detail. Motion sensors triggered every afternoon. Doorbell alerts I never checked. Thermostat adjustments I dismissed as Emily's preference for warmth. Everything points to regular afternoon visits from Emily's mystery man. The data doesn't lie. Unlike people, systems just record facts. Temperature changes at 2:47 p.m. on days I supposedly left early. Motion detected in the living room during hours Emily claimed to be shopping. Door sensors showing departures that never appeared on our doorbell camera because they left through the back. My phone buzzes against the table, Emily's name lighting up the screen. A text message. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. The message reads like mockery now. Working late. Right. The same lie I've been telling myself, except I actually was at the refinery while she was here with him. I stare at the evidence filling my screen, feeling like a stranger in my own home. The systematic nature of both thefts, my money and my marriage, suggests careful planning. Someone orchestrated this perfectly, timing every piece to avoid detection. But they didn't count on my attention to detail. 16 years of pressure testing and quality control taught me to notice when systems don't behave as designed. And this system, my marriage, my work, my life, has been compromised. Car headlights sweep across the living room wall as Emily's Honda pulls into the driveway at 11 p.m. I close the laptop and sit in darkness, controlling my breathing like I learned in the Navy. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Stay calm. Stay focused. She enters quietly, assuming I'm asleep. Her heels click softly on the hardwood floors, each step recorded by motion sensors she doesn't know are tracking her movements. The smart home system silently documents her return, just as it captured her afternoon departure with another man. "Clint?" she calls softly. "You awake?" I don't answer. Let her think I'm sleeping. Tomorrow I'll need answers. about the stolen overtime, about the BMW, about the man who's been in my house. But tonight, I need to process what I've learned. Emily moves upstairs, her footsteps creaking on the old wooden steps. The house settles around us, keeping its electronic secrets while I plan my next move. Every sensor, every camera, every data point building a case I never wanted to make. The smart home system reveals someone has been in the house during my supposed overtime shifts. And that someone isn't just Emily. Saturday morning, I spread 3 months of pay stubs across the kitchen table, my calculator clicking like a metronome. The numbers don't add up. 47 hours logged in my certification records, but only 32 hours paid on the stub dated September 29th. I circle the discrepancy in red ink, the pen scratching against the paper. 15 hours missing, I mutter, comparing another stub to my handwritten logs. Emily bustles around the kitchen, making coffee, humming some tune I don't recognize. The sound grates against my concentration like metal on metal. "You're up early for a Saturday," she says, not looking at the papers spread before me. Steam rises from her mug, carrying the bitter scent of dark roast. Morning light streams through our kitchen window, highlighting dust motes that dance in the air like my suspicions, visible but hard to catch. I've been tracking these discrepancies for 3 weeks now. Something systematic is happening to my money, and I need to understand what. "Just checking some numbers," I tell her, tapping my pen against the October 5th stub. Same pattern. Logged overtime that never made it to my paycheck. Emily glances over my shoulder, her perfume mixing with the coffee smell. "More work stuff? Can't you take 1 day off?" I don't answer. The evidence is right here in black and white. Someone's been skimming my overtime pay for months, maybe longer. The question is who and how. Monday morning at Gulf Coast Refining Solutions, I approached Dave Kowalski's office with my documentation folder. The industrial hum of the plant vibrates through the concrete floors, familiar as my own heartbeat. "Dave, I need to check something with payroll." My supervisor looks up from his computer screen, coffee steam rising between us. His weathered face shows concern as I spread the highlighted pay stubs across his desk. "What am I looking at, Brennan?" "Overtime discrepancies. These hours," I point to my certification logs, "don't match what I'm being paid for." Dave frowns, pulling his reading glasses down. "This is weird. Your overtime's being direct deposited to a different account than your regular pay." He turns his monitor toward me. "See this routing number? That's not your usual bank." The screen shows an account number I don't recognize. Coastal Federal Credit Union, account ending in 4739. "I never opened an account there," I say quietly, my methodical mind already calculating the theft. 18 months of missing overtime at roughly 15 hours per month. We're talking serious money. System shows it was set up. Dave clicks through screens. "September of last year. You sure you didn't authorize this?" The refinery's machinery pounds in the background, but all I hear is the blood rushing in my ears. Someone's been stealing from me for over a year, and they had to have my personal information to do it. That evening, I review the smart home app while Emily showers upstairs. The entry logs tell a different story than her words. Thursday, October 10th. She left at 11:47 a.m., returned at 4:23 p.m. But she told me she spent the whole day home with a migraine. Water runs overhead as I screenshot the timestamps. The shower steam creeps under the bathroom door, fogging the hallway mirror. "How was your day?" I call up the stairs. "Terrible migraine, barely left the couch." Emily's voice echoes off the bathroom tiles. "Couldn't even watch TV. The light hurt too much." I stare at the phone screen showing her 4-hour absence. The house feels different now, like evidence is hiding in every corner, in the way she arranges her keys, in the timing of her showers, in the careful way she answers simple questions. I'm building a case without knowing what crime I'm investigating. but every day brings more pieces that don't fit the picture she's painting. Wednesday night, Emily snaps at dinner over my methodical eating pace. The tension in our dining room could be cut with a knife. God, Clint, could you chew any slower? She stabs her salad aggressively, the fork scraping against the ceramic bowl. Jennifer Walsh's husband just bought her a new Lexus. Midnight blue, leather interior. Must be nice having money, I respond evenly, watching her face for tells. The way her eyes dart away when she mentions expensive things. Some people know how to get ahead instead of just existing, Emily continues, gesturing at our modest home with its dated appliances and worn furniture. They take chances, make investments. I file away her reference to Jennifer Walsh, another name, another data point. My wife is comparing our life to someone else's and finding it lacking. But where's she getting these ideas about investments and taking chances? What kind of investments? I ask. Emily's fork pauses halfway to her mouth. Oh, you know, stocks, bonds, smart financial planning. The answer comes too quick, too practiced, like she's rehearsed it. Thursday morning at Coastal Federal Credit Union, I present my ID and marriage certificate to the branch manager. The lobby smells like new carpet and artificial air freshener. Nothing like the honest smell of oil and metal at the refinery. Sir, I show an account opened 18 months ago with your social security number, the manager confirms, sliding papers across his polished desk. His nameplate reads, Robert Chen, and his suit probably costs more than I make in a week. The account balance shows $23,847.33, roughly what I calculate for my stolen overtime pay. Who has access? I ask, my voice steady despite my pulse hammering against my collar. Your wife, Emily Brennan, is listed as co-owner. She has full access to deposits and withdrawals. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead as I process this betrayal. She didn't just know about the theft, she orchestrated it. My own wife has been stealing from me for over a year, and she's been so careful about it that I only caught on because of a clerical error. Can you show me the transaction history? Chen hesitates. I can provide statements for accounts you're listed on, certainly. The printout tells the story in black and white. Regular deposits matching my missing overtime, and withdrawals, always in cash, always by Emily. The most recent withdrawal was yesterday, $1,200. That evening, I grill burgers in our backyard while Emily talks about her friend Sarah's kitchen renovation. The charcoal pops and hisses, sending up smoke that stings my eyes. Granite countertops, custom cabinets, must have cost $40,000, she says, sipping wine from a glass that catches the evening light. The backsplash alone was $8,000. Where do people get that kind of money? I ask casually, flipping the meat. Grease drips onto the coals, sending up small flames. Smart investments, better jobs, Emily shrugs, like it's obvious. Some people take risks instead of just collecting a paycheck. The backyard smells like charcoal and deception. I realize she's not just stealing my money, she's using it to fund a lifestyle she's ashamed to admit she can't afford legitimately. And she's getting ideas from somewhere, or someone, about what that lifestyle should look like. What kind of risks? I press, watching her face in the fading daylight. Emily's wine glass pauses at her lips. Investment opportunities, things you wouldn't understand. There it is again, that practiced dismissal, like she's protecting me from complexity I couldn't handle. But I understand plenty. I understand that my wife has been lying to me for over a year, stealing my overtime pay, and now she's talking about investments and risks like she's some kind of financial expert. The question is, who's been teaching her? Friday afternoon, I called Tony Ricci from my truck outside the refinery gates. Frank gave me his number, said Tony handles union cases sometimes, keeps things quiet. The diesel engine ticks as it cools, and I can smell sulfur from the processing units mixing with October rain. I need surveillance on my wife, I tell him straight. Tony's voice comes through the phone static like gravel in a cement mixer. Domestic cases are messy, brother. You sure you want to know what I might find? Through my windshield, I watch the industrial skyline, smokestacks reaching toward gray clouds, steam rising from cooling towers. This place makes sense. Pressure, temperature, flow rates, everything measurable, everything predictable. Not like what's waiting at home. I need facts, not feelings, I say. 3 days minimum to get anything useful. Document everything. Where she goes, who she meets, how long. 500 up front, another 5 when I deliver the report. The transaction feels businesslike, professional, like ordering pipe fittings or scheduling pressure tests. Sometimes you need the right tools for the job. Done. Saturday morning, Emily dresses for what she calls grocery shopping. I watch from our bedroom doorway as she applies makeup at her vanity, foundation, concealer, lipstick she only wears for special occasions. Diamond earrings catch the light as she turns her head, checking her profile in the mirror. Taking a while to get ready for Kroger, I observe. I might stop by the mall too, she says without meeting my eyes. Her hands smooth down a black dress that costs more than my weekly take-home. Maybe grab lunch somewhere nice. The smart lock chimes as she leaves at 10:15 a.m. I wait 5 minutes, then check the hidden account balance online. The screen loads slowly, numbers appearing like a verdict. $21,203.17. Someone withdrew $2,644.16 yesterday while I was working. My wife is funding someone else's lifestyle with my stolen labor, and she's getting dressed up like it's a date to do it. I sit in my kitchen, drinking coffee from a mug that says, "World's Best Dad," a Father's Day gift from years ago when we still thought kids might happen. The house feels different now, like walking through a crime scene. Every surface Emily touches, every drawer she opens, every smile she gives me, all of it contaminated by what I know. The coffee tastes bitter, but I finish it anyway. Monday evening, my phone buzzes while I'm organizing tools in the garage. Tony Ricci's name appears on the screen. "Your wife met a guy at Riverside Cafe," he says without preamble. Tall, expensive suit, drives a BMW. They looked real comfortable together. I set down my socket wrench set, each piece in its designated spot. The garage smells like motor oil and metal shavings. Honest work, honest smells. How long were they together? 3 hours. Sat close, lots of touching, shared dessert. Real cozy. My hands tighten around the phone. 3 hours. While I was working a double shift to cover someone else's vacation, Emily was playing house with another man. Here's the interesting part, Tony continues. His car's a lease, and he paid for coffee with a credit card that got declined twice. Had to use a different one. I process this information like reading a pressure gauge. Emily's wealthy lover isn't wealthy at all. You want me to keep watching? Yeah, I want to know everything. Tuesday night, Emily mentions Marcus Delacroix during dinner, like she's sharing gossip about a movie star. Met this investment banker today, she says, twirling pasta around her fork. Her eyes are bright, animated in a way I haven't seen in months. So sophisticated. Travels internationally for work. Sounds impressive, I respond, filing away the name. Marcus Delacroix. Finally, a name for the ghost in my marriage. He drives a BMW, lives downtown in one of those luxury condos. She takes a sip of wine, savoring both the taste and the words. Really successful. The kind of man who appreciates fine things. The dining room feels smaller suddenly, filled with her obvious infatuation. Every word she speaks about him is a knife twist, but I keep my face neutral, my voice steady. What kind of investments does he handle? High-end portfolios, international markets. Emily waves her hand dismissively. Complex stuff. He said most people wouldn't understand the opportunities he works with. I realize Emily doesn't just want the money. She wants the status, the sophistication she thinks money brings. She's buying herself a fantasy with my stolen overtime pay, and Marcus Delacroix is selling it to her one expensive coffee date at a time. Wednesday morning, I research Marcus Delacroix online while Emily showers upstairs. The bathroom fan hums through the ceiling as I dig into public records, social media, business registrations. Nothing. No LinkedIn profile for any investment firm. No business license. No property records showing a downtown condo. I expand the search. Court records, bankruptcy filings, collections notices. There it is. Marcus Delacroix. Bankruptcy filed March 2019. Eviction notice from August 2022. 3 credit cards in collections. The man Emily thinks is sophisticated and successful is a ghost with terrible credit. Good shower? I ask when Emily emerges in a towel, humming some song I don't recognize. Perfect, she smiles, radiating the kind of contentment that makes my stomach turn. She's glowing with happiness that has nothing to do with me, funded by money she's stealing from me for a man who doesn't exist. She's not just cheating. She's being conned by someone even more desperate than she is. Thursday evening, I sit in my truck outside our house, staring at Tony's surveillance photos spread across my dashboard. The streetlight illuminates each image like evidence in a courtroom. Marcus Delacroix at a gas station, his credit card declined. The attendant shaking his head while Marcus digs through his wallet. Marcus at an ATM, punching buttons repeatedly. The screen showing insufficient funds, visible even in the grainy photo. Marcus counting crumpled bills from his wallet outside a restaurant, his face tight with concentration. The final photo hits like a hammer blow. Emily handing him cash in the parking lot, a thick envelope passing between them like a drug deal. My stolen overtime money, funding his fake lifestyle while she lectures me about ambition and success. The irony cuts deep. My status-obsessed wife is bankrolling a broke con man's fantasy while telling me I lack vision. She's not trading up. She's being played by someone even more desperate than she is. I gather the photos, my hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. Emily's wealthy lover Marcus is actually broke, using her for the money she's stealing from me. The hunter has become the hunted, and neither of them knows I'm watching from the shadows with all the evidence I need. The game is about to change. The smart home footage spread across my kitchen table like evidence from a crime scene. 23 files, each one a knife twist. I clicked the first video, timestamp 2:47 p.m., September 30th. Emily's laughter filled my laptop speakers as Marcus pressed his mouth against her neck on our anniversary couch. The same couch where we'd watched movies for 16 years. I was supposed to be clocking overtime that day. Gulf Coast Refining's pressure vessel inspection logs showed me working until 8 p.m. But here I sat, watching my wife's betrayal unfold in high definition, while my stolen pay funded their afternoon romance. My calloused fingers traced the laptop screen, memorizing every betraying second. The coffee grew cold beside me as I watched my marriage dissolve into pixels and lies. Emily wore the red dress I'd bought her last Christmas, the one she said was too fancy for anywhere we'd go. 16 years of marriage, reduced to security footage. The front door rattled at 6 p.m. sharp. Designer shopping bags rustled as Emily breezed through, her heels clicking against our hardwood floor like gunshots. She moved with that practiced grace she developed over the years, the walk of someone who belonged in better places than this modest suburban home. "You're home early," she said, not meeting my eyes. Her voice carried that careful modulation she used around her country club friends. I held up my phone, the paused video frame showing her and Marcus tangled together on our couch. "We need to talk." Emily's face cycled through surprise, defiance, then calculated calm in the space of 3 heartbeats. I'd seen that same progression when she'd crashed our Honda into the neighbor's fence 5 years ago. The quick mental scramble for the right lie. "Oh, that." She waved her manicured hand dismissively. "Marcus was helping me plan your surprise party." Her voice carried that condescending tone she reserved for explaining complex things to her blue-collar husband. The same tone she used when describing wine pairings or art exhibitions, subjects apparently beyond my intellectual reach. The lie hung between us like toxic gas from a ruptured pipeline. "Surprise party?" I kept my voice level, the way I'd learned in the Navy. "By sticking his tongue down your throat on our anniversary couch?" Emily's perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the flush creeping up her neck. She straightened her shoulders, preparing for battle. "You're being paranoid, Clint." "This is exactly why I need friends who understand sophistication." She gestured at our home dismissively, the same home I'd worked double shifts to afford. "Marcus has culture, education. He's teaching me about investments, art, things beyond your—" She paused, selecting her words like surgical instruments. "Limitations." Each word was a scalpel, precisely cutting at the insecurities she knew I carried about my education, my rough hands, my blue-collar existence. She'd mapped my weaknesses over 16 years of marriage, and now she was using them as weapons. The kitchen became our battlefield. Emily paced between the island and the sink, her heels clicking against tile like a metronome counting down to destruction. Her designer athleisure outfit, the kind that cost more than most people's weekly paychecks, swished with each angry step. My hands trembled as I pulled up the bank statements on my laptop. The Coastal Federal Credit Union account glowed on the screen like evidence of financial murder. "Then explain this hidden account. Explain $47,300 of my overtime pay disappearing into thin air." Emily glanced at the screen, her carefully constructed mask slipping for just a moment. I caught a flash of something. Fear? Guilt? Before she recovered. "I don't know what you're talking about." But her voice wavered like a pressure gauge reading danger levels. She recovered quickly, straightening her shoulders and lifting her chin. "Maybe if you paid attention to our finances instead of just grunt work, you'd understand legitimate investments." The gaslighting was surgical, professional. Make me doubt my own evidence. Make me question my own intelligence. It was a technique she'd perfected over years of making me feel small. "Legitimate investments?" My voice rose despite my training. "With a con man who drives a leased BMW he can't afford?" "Marcus is a financial advisor. Marcus is unemployed." The words erupted from my chest like steam from a ruptured pipe. "I ran his plates, Emily. I know about his credit card debt, his eviction notices, his complete lack of any legitimate income." For the first time in years, I saw genuine shock cross her face. 16 years, Emily." My voice cracked, raw with betrayal that had been building for months. 16 years I've bled for this family. 16 years of overtime, of missed dinners, of breaking my body so you could have everything you wanted." She flinched but held her ground, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "Don't you dare make this about your sacrifices. I've sacrificed too. My potential, my dreams, stuck in this blue-collar prison." The accusation hit like a physical blow to my solar plexus. Everything I'd built, every extra shift I'd worked, every missed birthday and anniversary dinner, all worthless in her eyes. I was the prison keeping her from her dreams, not the man breaking his back to make those dreams possible. "Blue-collar prison?" I whispered, the words barely escaping my throat. "Yes!" She threw her hands up, her composure finally cracking. "Do you know what it's like being married to someone who comes home covered in grease? Who doesn't understand wine lists or art galleries or intelligent conversation about anything beyond pipe fittings?" The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Outside, the neighbor's dog barked at something in the darkness. The refrigerator hummed. The house settled with small creaks and sighs. I closed the laptop with deliberate precision, the same way I'd close a valve on a damaged line. So you stole my pay to fund your escape plan. It's not stealing when it's marital assets. It's theft when you forge my signature on bank documents. I pulled out the folder Tony Ricci had compiled. Want to see the handwriting analysis? The forged authorization forms? The paper trail showing exactly how you've been bleeding our accounts dry? Emily's face went pale beneath her foundation. Emily's face went pale beneath her foundation. The silence stretched between us like a high-pressure line ready to burst. You hired someone to spy on me? Her voice cracked on the last word. I hired someone to find my stolen money. I kept my tone level, professional. Same voice I used reporting equipment failures to management. Turns out theft and adultery travel together. She backed against the counter, her designer handbag clutched like a shield. Clint, you don't understand. I understand plenty. I stood up slowly, my knees protesting after 16 hours on concrete floors. I understand you've been stealing my overtime pay for 18 months. I understand Marcus Delacroix has $67,000 in credit card debt and drives a leased BMW he can't afford. I understand my wife is bankrolling a con man's fantasy while telling everyone I lack vision. Emily's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping on deck. The handwriting analysis proves you forged my signature on the account authorization. The bank statements show systematic theft. The smart home logs prove you've been entertaining him in our house while I worked double shifts to pay for his lifestyle. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. I gathered the papers with deliberate precision, each document a nail in the coffin of our marriage. You want sophisticated conversation? Here's some sophisticated math. $47,300. That's what you've stolen. Plus the $23,000 from our joint savings. Plus the credit cards you maxed out in my name. Emily slumped against the granite countertop we'd saved 3 years to afford. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did. I closed the folder. And now we deal with consequences. She looked up at me with those green eyes that used to make my chest tight. Now they just looked desperate. What are you going to do? I'm going to work. I headed for the garage. Tomorrow I'll call Jennifer Walsh. You remember her? The divorce attorney who handled Frank's case last year. Clint, wait! But I was already gone, the door closing behind me with mechanical finality. The garage smelled like motor oil and possibility. I sat in my truck for 10 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, processing what had just happened. 16 years of marriage reduced to bank statements and forged signatures. The mockingbird outside sang the same 4-note song my father used to whistle while working on engines. I started the truck and drove to Gulf Coast refining. The night shift at the refinery felt like sanctuary. Steam hissed from pressure relief valves, creating a white fog that softened the harsh industrial lighting. I threw myself into the work with desperate intensity, checking and rechecking pressure readings on the distillation units. At 3 a.m., Dave Kowalski found me in the valve testing bay, running diagnostics on equipment that had passed inspection 6 hours earlier. Brennan, his voice cut through the mechanical hum. You're running on fumes. Go home. Systems need checking. I didn't look up from the pressure gauge. The needle held steady at 150 psi, exactly where it should be. Unlike everything else in my life. Systems are fine. You're not. Dave leaned against the control panel, his supervisor's instincts kicking in. Want to talk about it? Nothing to talk about. I moved to the next valve assembly, my hands working with practiced efficiency. Here, things made sense. Pipes either held pressure or they didn't. No gray areas, no sophisticated explanations for simple truths. Sarah called me. Dave's words hit like a wrench to the gut. Said Emily's been posting pictures with some guy in a suit. Expensive restaurants, fancy cars. I stopped working. The valve wrench felt heavy in my hands. She's worried about you, Clint. We all are. I'm fine. The lie tasted like industrial solvent. Just need to stay busy. You've been here 14 hours. That's not busy. That's running away. Dave was right, but home meant facing Emily's performance, her lies dressed up as sophisticated explanations. The refinery's constant hum had become my lullaby, the chemical smell my comfort. Here, I was competent. Here, my skills mattered. Take tomorrow off, Dave said. Get some sleep. Deal with whatever's happening at home. I need the overtime. No, you don't. He pulled out his phone, showing me the payroll app. You've worked 63 hours this week. Company policy caps it at 60. Anything over that is unpaid volunteer work. The irony burned like acid reflux. I was working for free while my wife spent my stolen money on her boyfriend's BMW payments. By Thursday, Emily had stopped pretending. She brought Marcus to the neighborhood barbecue at the Kowalski house like he was some kind of prize she'd won at the county fair. He stood by the pool in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly take-home, holding court with the other husbands while describing his investment portfolio. The BMW gleamed in the driveway like a monument to my humiliation. European markets are particularly volatile right now, Marcus was saying, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. But if you understand the fundamentals, there's significant opportunity for growth. The men nodded like he was dispensing wisdom from Mount Sinai. Bob Henderson, who managed a tire shop, hung on every word. Mike Torres, who drove for UPS, asked earnest questions about international finance. Emily stood beside Marcus like expensive jewelry, her hand resting on his arm with practiced intimacy. She wore a dress I'd never seen before, probably bought with my overtime pay. Clint works so hard, she said when Dave introduced me to the group. Her voice dripped with mock sympathy. But he just doesn't understand modern finance. Blue-collar mentality, you know? The gathered couples nodded knowingly. I felt their eyes on me, the simple pipe fitter who couldn't appreciate his wife's sophisticated needs. My reputation crumbled in real time while I stood there holding a beer bottle like some kind of prop. Actually, I said, my voice cutting through Marcus's monologue about hedge funds, I understand finance pretty well. Navy taught me to read financial statements, track expenses, spot discrepancies. Marcus's smile flickered for just a moment. Of course, basic accounting is valuable. I'm talking about more complex instruments, derivatives, options, international currency fluctuations. Right. I took a sip of beer, watching him carefully. What firm do you work for again? Delacroix Financial Consulting. The answer came too quickly, too smooth. Boutique operation. We focus on high net worth individuals. Sounds impressive. I pulled out my phone. Mind if I look you up? Always interested in learning about investment opportunities? Emily's face went white. Marcus's smile became strained. We maintain a very low profile. Discretion is essential in private wealth management. Of course, I nodded like I understood. Can't be too careful with other people's money. The chlorine smell from the pool mixed with my rising nausea as I watched my stolen cash fund Marcus's performance. Every word out of his mouth was bought and paid for with my blood and sweat. That night, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Saw the photos on Emily's Instagram. Who's the suit? I opened the app with trembling fingers. There they were, Emily and Marcus at Chez Laurent, the French restaurant downtown that charged $50 for a piece of fish. Her caption read, "Finally dining with someone who appreciates the finer things. Hashtag blessed, hashtag sophisticated, hashtag living my best life." The comments were brutal. Lucky girl, he's gorgeous. About time you found someone who treats you right. Clint who? You deserve happiness, Em. My marriage had become public entertainment, my pain a social media spectacle. Friends and family asking questions I couldn't answer without admitting my humiliation. The mockingbird outside my window sang its four-note song, oblivious to the destruction happening inside these walls. I scrolled through more photos. Marcus at art galleries, wine tastings, charity events, all funded by my overtime pay. Emily glowing beside him like she'd finally found her true calling as a rich man's trophy. But something nagged at me, a detail that didn't fit. I called Tony Ricci. "It's late, Brennan. I need you to dig deeper on Marcus Delacroix. Something's not adding up." "What kind of deeper?" "Other women. If he's running this con on Emily, he's probably running it on others." Tony was quiet for a moment. "That'll cost extra." "Do it." 3 days later, Tony called back with information that made my blood run cold. Marcus wasn't just scamming Emily. He was running the same game on at least 4 other women across 3 states. The BMW, the expensive dinners, the sophisticated wardrobe, all funded by a rotating cast of lonely wives looking for something their blue-collar husbands couldn't provide. "He's got a system," Tony explained. "Targets married women with access to joint accounts, plays the wealthy sophisticate, gets them to invest in his fake consulting business, then disappears when the money runs out." "How long before he disappears on Emily?" "Based on the pattern? Soon. Your wife's accounts are almost tapped out." The Bayshore Country Club's dining room hummed with conversation as I adjusted my tie one final time. 36 guests filled the elegant space, co-workers from the refinery, Emily's book club friends, neighbors we'd known for years. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over white tablecloths and gleaming silverware. Emily glowed beside me in her new black dress, the one that cost $300. My stolen overtime money, I now knew. Marcus sat at table 3, checking his phone for the 4th time in 10 minutes. His BMW keys rested beside his water glass. Always had to display the props. Sarah caught my eye from across the room and gave me the slightest nod. She'd driven down from Houston just for this moment. The anniversary cake dominated the center table, 3 tiers of vanilla and raspberry that Emily had insisted on. "People like us don't serve sheet cake," she'd said. The waiters moved efficiently between tables, filling champagne flutes with Dom Perignon. Another expense that would have made me wince 6 months ago, before I understood where the money was really going. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against hardwood. The manila folder felt heavy in my hands, not because of its weight, but because of what it contained. 18 months of documentation, bank statements, photographs, phone records. Tony Ricci had been thorough. I tapped my champagne glass with a silver knife. The crystal ring cut through the chatter like a blade. "Thank you all for celebrating 16 years with us tonight." My voice carried perfectly across the suddenly hushed room. Emily squeezed my hand, her smile radiant. She had no idea what was coming. Marcus set down his phone, finally giving me his full attention. "Emily and I have built something special together," I continued, my tone warm and conversational. "She's taught me so much about partnership, about trust." A few guests murmured agreement. Dave Kowalski raised his glass slightly, grinning. He'd been to enough of these anniversary dinners to know the routine. "About how 2 people can work toward common goals," I said, my eyes finding Marcus across the room. He shifted in his chair, something in my tone making him uncomfortable. "Like when Emily helped me understand why my paychecks seemed smaller lately." Scattered chuckles rippled through the crowd. Married life, they thought. The eternal joke about wives and spending. But Dave's expression grew serious. He knew my overtime hours better than anyone. Frank Novak stopped mid-sip, his union representative instincts kicking in. The room remained warm and celebratory, but I felt the first threads of tension creeping into my voice. Emily's grip on my hand tightened slightly. "See, I discovered Emily's been very busy managing our finances while I've been working those double shifts. I opened the manila folder slowly, dramatically. The papers inside were organized with military precision. Bank statements on top, photographs beneath, phone records at the bottom. She opened an account at Coastal Federal Credit Union. Very thoughtful of her. Emily's face drained of color. Her champagne glass trembled in her free hand. Very proactive, I continued, pulling out the first bank statement. $47,300. That's a lot of overtime shifts at the refinery. The room fell dead silent. Someone's fork clinked against a plate, the sound unnaturally loud. Marcus started to stand, then thought better of it, sinking back into his chair. Gasps rippled through the crowd like dominoes falling. Jennifer Walsh, seated near the back in her sharp business suit, leaned forward intently. She'd been waiting for this moment, too. "Clint, please," Emily whispered, grabbing my arm with both hands now. "Stop this. Not here." But I gently removed her hands, my voice never wavering. The military training kicked in, calm under pressure, mission focus, complete the objective. "And Emily's been so generous with our money," I said, turning to the second page. $23,000 to help a friend in need. I gestured toward Marcus, whose face had gone from tan to ashen in 30 seconds. Marcus Delacroix, everyone. Investment bank, or so Emily thought. Several guests turned to stare at Marcus, who was now visibly sweating despite the air conditioning. His expensive shirt showed dark patches under the arms. The BMW keys seemed to mock him from the table. The room crackled with shock and anticipation. You could have heard a pin drop on the Persian rug. Frank crossed his arms, understanding dawning in his weathered features. Tony Ricci smirked slightly from his corner table, probably proud of his investigative work. I continued methodically, like I was reading a pressure vessel inspection report. Facts. Just facts. Marcus drives a beautiful BMW 340i. Gorgeous car. Leased, of course. Hard to buy cars when you owe $67,000 on credit cards. Marcus bolted for the exit, his chair clattering backward. But Dave Kowalski's considerable bulk appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. 300 pounds of refinery muscle blocking the escape route. "Turns out investment banking doesn't pay what it used to," I said, allowing myself the smallest smile. Nervous laughter broke the tension momentarily. A few guests who'd never liked Marcus anyway seemed to be enjoying the show. Emily sat frozen beside me, her carefully applied makeup beginning to streak. Black mascara traced thin lines down her cheeks. The woman who'd spent an hour getting ready for this party was dissolving in real time. The room felt electric, everyone holding their breath for what came next. I watched Emily process the weight of my words, her face cycling through denial, anger, and finally something that looked like acceptance. She stood on shaking legs, her designer dress wrinkled from gripping the fabric. "You're humiliating me in front of everyone!" Her voice cracked, the carefully modulated tone she'd perfected over 15 years, finally breaking apart. The woman who'd spent our marriage correcting my grammar was screaming like the factory worker's daughter she'd tried so hard not to be. I nodded thoughtfully, like she'd made a valid point in a technical discussion. "Yes, I am." My voice stayed conversational, almost gentle. "The same way you humiliated me every day for 14 months. Emily flinched as if I'd slapped her. Around us, guests shifted uncomfortably in their chairs, trapped between wanting to leave and needing to see how this played out. "But here's the thing, Emily." I folded the bank statements carefully, creasing each edge with precision. "I'm keeping my pension. You're keeping the house. We're even." Sarah wiped away a tear from her corner table, and I caught her eye. She nodded once. The same nod our father used to give when one of us did something that made him proud. That small gesture meant more than all the applause in the world. The room watched this intimate devastation unfold with horrified fascination. These people had come for prime rib and anniversary cake. Instead, They were witnessing the methodical dismantling of a marriage, one bank statement at a time. Marcus made another desperate attempt at the door, but Frank Novak stepped forward, blocking his path. At 62, Frank still carried himself like the Marine he'd been 40 years ago. "Son, I'd sit back down if I were you." His union voice carried the authority of a man who'd faced down corporate lawyers and plant managers for 3 decades. "We're not done here." Marcus slumped back into his chair, defeated. The BMW keys on the table seemed to mock him now, a prop in a performance he could no longer afford. His expensive watch caught the light as his hands trembled slightly. I raised my champagne glass one final time, the crystal catching the chandelier's glow. The room fell silent again, everyone holding their breath. "To Emily," I said, my voice carrying across the dining room. "May you find what you're looking for." I drained the champagne in one long pull while Emily stared at me, tears flowing freely now. The carefully applied makeup Jennifer Walsh had complimented earlier was streaked and ruined. The guests sat in stunned silence, unsure whether to applaud or flee to their cars. The anniversary cake sat untouched on its silver stand, 3 tiers of vanilla and buttercream, topped with sugar flowers that had cost more than I made in a day. A monument to shattered illusions. Dave Kowalski approached as guests began filing out quietly, their conversations reduced to whispers and meaningful glances. His massive frame cast a shadow over our table. "Hell of a thing, Clint." He gripped my shoulder with a hand that could bend steel pipe. "You need anything, and I mean anything, you call me." Other refinery workers nodded their respect as they passed. These were men who understood betrayal, who'd seen